Hello guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Ed and I usually post videos about writing and my writing journey, but to be honest, I haven't actually been writing that much, so I decided to start this podcast where I just basically knit and talk about what I'm knitting and also about the books that I'm currently reading. Um because at this point, I don't know, my channel is more of a diary to me to just talk about my daily life. And there's more to me than just the side that likes to write. So, yeah, welcome to another Knit and Chat with Me video. um, I hope you don't mind. I'm on my pajamas. I don't know. If you guys work from home, if any of you that is watching this video works from home, do you guys get dressed up every single day in the morning, or do you just work in your pajamas? Because one of the issues of working from home is that you don't have that separation between work life and, daily life. And one of the tips that I received over the years was to get dressed as if you were going out to work in a normal office, like most people do, so that you can kind of differentiate between the working you, and the you that is at home. Um, but I don't know. I don't know. I feel silly getting dressed up in the morning when I'm not going anywhere. I don't know. Is it that just me, or does any of you feel the same? Cuz I don't know. Like, it would be nice to have a more clear separation between my work life and my day-to-day life. Um but yeah, I don't know if I have the patience to get dressed every single day and not go anywhere. Speaking of work, I was actually supposed to be working right now, um, but I decided to take a break, um, just because I'm not feeling in the best place mentally. Basically, I didn't work yesterday. My brother is currently training to become a police officer, and yesterday was one of those, one of the many ceremonies that we have to attend. And basically I took the morning off, but I took a ride with my mom. And basically my mom is not the most respectful person when it comes to my work life. Like, when I say I'm a freelancer to people, they think I can make my own schedule and I can work whenever I want. Um, but that's not quite the case, because even though I'm a freelancer, I'm a hired freelancer, meaning that I do have a daily schedule that I have to follow and, stick to. I have bosses. Some of my clients are technically my bosses, so I do have to work from a certain time to a certain time. And even though I told my mom that, and even though I told her that I only took the morning off, she decided to spend the entire day out and about, having, just having a family day trip, like, um, and that was quite frustrating for me. I felt super terrible because I had to call to my bosses like 1 hour before I was supposed to start working in the afternoon and tell them, yeah, I can't work after all because, well, I don't have my laptop and we're more delayed than I expected, you know. So I already got home super frustrated. And when I got home, I went to check my emails, and I had basically heard back from a business proposal that I sent a while back. I actually sent out three applications for a new project, and only one of the people answered. But yesterday they basically told me they weren't interested after all. So, I couldn't sleep. I woke up and I'm feeling really anxious. I took care of the work that I had to do that was urgent, but right now I can't actually concentrate. I'm going through the emotions. I'm feeling pretty bummed out. I really wanted to have this business opportunity just because it could help my career overall, and you know not being chosen is it's really sad. um so yeah. So I decided to take a break and just sit down and chat a bit, pour my heart out, just vent. Maybe it will make me feel better. I'm considering shifting all work, all flexible work, to the weekend. So instead of working during the week, I'm thinking of like going easy today and doing the work I can do on the weekend, and then maybe by then I'll be already recharged, and today I'll only focus on the urgent things that I have to do. um, and just take it easy so I can recover mentally and get my soul feeling better, my battery's charged. So yeah, I'm still working on my t-shirt. I actually frogged the project I showed you last time and I started over again. Um, this is actually the third time I'm starting on this t-shirt. Um, just because the first time I made it too big. The second time I decided to go in with um, bigger needles just because my stitches were too tight. And I don't know, I changed the needle side and my stitches got extremely loose. So I just decided to go with the smaller needles. And even if my stitches are too tight after washing and blocking, they should get quite loose. So, like, that should make up for how tight the stitches are right now. So I just, I frogged it and I cast it on a third time, and I really hope this term is the charm, just because I get very frustrated when I have to frog and start my projects over multiple times. I don't know if you guys are like that, um, but I am, and it's actually one of the reasons why I don't have that many hobbies. I'm a perfectionist. Actually, I was reading a really super interesting psychology essay the other day, or research. I can't tell for sure. But basically, they were saying that perfectionist adults are actually overachieving children. Like, they're the consequence of overachieving children, as in, when you're too smart as a child and you get, you do super well in school without actually having to try that hard. Basically, what happens is that you never learn how to properly study just because you're young, and you get things right the first time and you don't actually have to study, so you never actually learn how to study. uh, you also never learn how to deal with failure. You never learn how to have perseverance and keep on trying on things that you're not good on the first try, and your self-worth ends up being attached to how well you do on things at your first try. So when you grow up, because you never develop the tools necessary to succeed in things with your effort, you basically end up being a perfectionist just because you need everything to be good and perfect because, again, your self-worth is connected to that feeling. And you also end up being a procrastinator, um, just because if you don't start a project, you can never be bad at it. So you'll never feel like you're useless or that you're not worthy or that you're not a good person. You know, like, I'm not entirely sure if I'm explaining myself properly. Um, One of the many difficulties of not being a native English speaker. I'm hoping that by recording these videos that I can improve my spoken English, just because I do practice my written English every single day, but my spoken one I don't like. No, I hadn't practiced my spoken English like ever since college until I decided to start this channel, just because I don't actually have to use it for work. Like, I do occasionally have one or two meetings that are in English, but they only occur once a month. So it's not actually enough for me to practice how I speak and how I don't know, how I convey my ideas. So yeah, let's see if the videos do help with that too, because I do want to improve my English. I wanna keep improving on what I do and what I can do, both professionally and, just overall. Again, I'm a perfectionist. um, yeah, and it's fun because a lot of people, like, a lot of times say that, oh, you're lazy, when you're not actually lazy. You're a procrastinator and a perfectionist because you were an overachieving child, and that is my case. And I feel like that's actually one of my biggest flaws, just because I end up giving up on things way too fast. Again, if I try something and if I'm not good at it, I end up giving up. Um, that applies to all of my hobbies: knitting, crocheting, even writing. Like, I feel one of the biggest reasons why I haven't been writing so much lately and why I haven't actually stick up to it over the years is because I'm just so afraid of not being good at it, you know? Like, I love writing. I really want to share my stories with the world, but I'm so scared of spending so much time and so much effort in something and then people ending up not liking it. I I don't know, it scares me. And I know that different people will have different opinions. I know not everyone will like my stories, and maybe at the end of the day, I'm not even actually a good writer, just in general, you know? It's not even a matter of opinion, it's a fact. And I know that my worth as a person is not directly linked to how well I do as a writer. But at the same time, it's hard to break away from that feeling of disappointment and that fear of rejection, especially when you think a lot of people always make fun that, oh my god, your hobby is your whole personality. But when you think about it, if the only thing you have going on for you in your life is your hobbies, then of course your hobbies are going to be a major part of your personality and of who you are as a person. Like, you're not only this small part of you, but it's still part of you. You know what I mean? So, like, I don't really like when people say um that that this hobby or this thing that you love is like your whole personality, and then they make fun of you for it, because at the end of the day, it actually is. It's an important part of who you are, and people should be a bit more understanding of that. Um, so I think that sentence, like, only applies to very specific situations. Like, but a lot of people like to use it in general. And I think they're wrong because, yeah, writing is a big part of who I am as a person. It's a big part of my personality. And yeah, if I'm not good at it, then I'm not entirely sure if I'll know who I am in general, just because it's been one of my dreams ever since I was a child. And what if it turns out that I'm not actually good at it? Like, all the things I knew about the world, they're going to be wrong, they're going to be fake, and I'm going to have to completely reinvent myself. And not entirely sure if I'm in the best place mentally to do that. Um, I don't know if any of us actually ever is. So, also, let's do a drinking game. Every time I say or like, you take a shot. uh, I know I probably should fix up the way I speak, but again, that will come with practice. So let's hope I do get better over time. Now, I still haven't edited the last Need and Chat with Me video. So I'm not entirely sure of what I said or not because I recorded it a couple days ago and I have memory problems. And people always make fun of me for it, like, oh, how can you forget about something you did like a couple days ago? But I actually do. Like, again, I have memory problems, so I'm not making up excuses. I actually have a medical condition that impacts my memory, and I don't actually remember it. Sometimes I don't even remember things I did a couple minutes ago. Like, depending on the days, depending on how my disease is acting up on that day, my memory might be better or might be worse. So please excuse me if I'm like repeating myself a lot. Um, but I don't think that on last episode I actually spoke about how and why I started knitting and crocheting. So I think that might be, a nice topic to talk about. Just because I don't want to sit down for half an hour and be in complete silence. And I also don't have any books to talk about right now because I haven't actually been reading anything new. I'm still reading the same books I was last time. So yeah, let's talk about how and why I started knitting and crocheting. So I think it's all due mostly to my grandma, my dad's mom, who passed away when I was in college, and I miss her a lot. Um, but she used to knit and crochet. Here in Portugal, a lot of old ladies do crochet and knitting just because it was a big part of their daily life and culture a couple of decades ago. So my grandma used to knit and crochet, and when I was, I don't know, 12 or 13, she actually tried to taught me how to knit. Um, but at the time, I wasn't actually interested in it. I didn't think it was fun. I I didn't enjoy it. Like I tried a couple times, but it took too much time, and I didn't have patience. And there were other things I wanted to be doing instead of knitting, and I just couldn't be bothered. So I never actually tried to learn, like for real, learn for real. She taught me how to knit, like the knit stitch, and she didn't teach me anything else because she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to teach you by steps. So do a scarf on knit stitch," which would end up in garter stitch, but I didn't actually know that at the time. Um, and she told me, "Yeah, try to do a scarf only on knit stitch, and later when you're done, I'll teach you how to cast off and how to do a different stitch. Let's go by steps. But again, I wasn't really interested, so that ended up never happening. Um, then she died in college, and I don't know. I didn't have the courage to go to her funeral just because I was heartbroken. She had been sick for many, many months. Um, so I knew it was only a matter of time until she died. But that doesn't mean that I wasn't heartbroken when it happened. And I just didn't want to be with other people at the moment. I didn't want to talk to people. I didn't want people to come to me and say, "Oh my God, we're so sorry, your grandma died." Blah 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 blah. I wanted to be alone. I didn't want to talk about my pain or my grief. I just wanted to be in silence so I could deal with my emotions and my feelings on my own and on my own terms. And I don't know, part of me kind of regretted not being able to say goodbye to her. Um, and talking about her has been really, really difficult for me. Like, it's kind of okay talking right now to the camera, but it's actually really hard to talk about her with other people, like face to face. And I don't know, I miss her a lot. So when the COVID pandemic started, I was at home. I actually got fired when the COVID started, um, from one of my jobs. Like, it was my main income source, so I was. No, actually, it was my only income source. At the time, I was only working for one person. So, yeah, it was devastating. And I didn't have anything to do. I kept sending my curriculum to multiple companies, and no one was getting back to me. And I was frustrated. I was sad. I was angry. I didn't have the guts to tell my parents that I had been fired and that I was currently unemployed. So I would lock up myself all day in the bathroom, just, being on the computer for 8, 9, 10 hours straight, looking for a job, setting applications. And at a certain point, I remember I came across a video on YouTube about crocheting, and uh, I don't know, I thought it was fun, and it reminded me of my grandma. Even though she never tried to teach me how to crochet, I knew she did crochet, so it reminded me of her, and I decided to try. So I went out and I got a couple hooks, I got some yarn, and I just started crocheting. And crocheting was easier for me because knitting was something that my grandma tried to teach me. So knitting was too painful for me at the time. I thought about trying to learn how to knit as well. At the same time, I was learning how to crochet, but I ended up giving up just because whenever I picked up the needles, I would think about my grandma and I would break down crying. So I couldn't do it at the time. I wasn't mentally prepared yet. So I started to crochet. And since I didn't have a job, it was everything I did for a while. Uh, and it was really fun. So I started to play around with it. I made a sweater, I made a couple of scarves, a couple hats. I made a ton of amigurimis. Is that how you pronounce it in English? Like stuffed animals for my sister. She loves them. She every year for her birthday and or Christmas, she always asks me to make her a new stuffed toy. She just really loves them, and it makes me so happy that she actually comes to me and she's like, "Oh, yay! Can you do me this character from this cartoon that I love?" Like, it makes me really happy. It makes me feel that my hobby is appreciated, in that people, I don't know, I don't know how to describe it. It's just a really nice feeling. And for a long time, I crocheted a lot. That was all I did. And it wasn't until this year that I decided to try knitting. And again, it was hard at first just because it reminded me of my grandma a lot. It still does, but I don't end up in tears whenever I pick up the needles anymore, you know? Uh, so yeah, I started learning how to knitting, baby steps at a time, and I love it. I love it more than crochet, although I do prefer to make stuffed animals in crochet than knit. Um, just because I feel like you have a lot more freedom in crochet when you do stuffed animals. But I do prefer the stitches in knitting. I just think they look more neat and pretty. Um, and yeah, knitting is like one of my favorite things at the moment. I love it from the bottom of my heart. It reminds me of my grandma and it makes me feel closer to her. Even if she wasn't the one who taught me how to knit, it still remembers me, it still reminds me of her. And, you know, it's just something nice that I can do, like in honor of her memory, or I don't know. I guess you can tell that this is still a hard topic for me. Um, I do love her, and I do miss her a lot. I think I don't know how to express my feelings, and even though it's been many years since she died, part of me thinks that I haven't actually overcome her death, and I don't know if I ever will. Like, she was the first person who died in my family that I remember. Like, my grandpa also died when I was younger, but I don't actually remember him dying, and I only have one memory of him. I have this one silly memory of him giving me fruit to eat. That's the only memory I have of my grandpa, and it's a good one. I do I do also have a memory of a nightmare I had when he died. Like, which is weird because I don't remember him dying. I don't remember what it was like after he died. Uh, but I remember that I had this nightmare about him. Basically, my granddad died of a heart attack, and after he died, I had this nightmare that he had eaten fruit, like poisonous fruit, and that he had broadened his heart, and that was why he died. And I kept having that nightmare for many years. It basically haunted my childhood, which is weird. And for the longest time as a child, I actually thought that he had been poisoned, that he had died from poison. Um, just silly detail for you to know about me. Like, my dad used to make fun of me for it, but like, I think even if I don't remember, I think that his death actually marked me and scarred me for life. Um, but yeah, my grandma's death was the hardest because I was 18 or 19 at a time, and no, I was 17, about to turn 18. Um, so yeah, it scarred me. It was very hard to deal with, and especially because it was my first year of college. I was away from my family. I didn't have any support. I didn't have any friends in college either, so it was very hard to deal with. And part of me wonders if the reason why I dealt with her that so bad was because I didn't actually have a security net around me at the time. So, I'm trying to take baby steps to recover and heal, but I'm not entirely sure if I ever will, just because I will always love her and I'll always miss her. So, yeah, I'm not entirely sure if I'll ever recover from it. Anyway, enough sad chit chatting. Um, that was the story of how I started to crochet in it. Uh, and now onto to something lighter and funnier, so we don't all start crying. Uh, I don't know. What else can I tell you? Uh, Actually, I don't know. uh, Again, you see, this is why I was saying that I probably wasn't going to be making knit and chat videos with me that often, just because I don't think I actually have anything to talk about. Like, I can talk about my current projects, but again, I'm a super slow knitter. Um, I could talk about the yarn I bought, but I don't actually buy yarn that frequently. I only buy yarn when it's in sale, which doesn't always happens. So yeah, maybe I can talk about, I don't know, something random. Like, if you guys like this kind of videos and would like me to continue to do them, like, maybe suggest a theme for me to speak about, for us to discuss, just to give me some ideas, because at this point I'm not entirely sure of what to talk about. Uh, but again, I don't want to end this video on a sad note, so I think I'm going to talk to you a bit about maybe my knitting plans for the future. Um, I'm planning on making a lot of sweaters. I love sweaters. They are so pretty, and I don't really have that many winter sweaters. Um, I have like 5 different winter sweaters, maybe. Um, I don't actually buy clothes that often. Let me be honest. I don't know about how many clothes you guys have or how often you buy clothes, but okay, I said I was going to talk about something joyful and, light, but now I want to talk about my childhood. And it's not actually that light, but it's not as sad as talking about my dead grandma. So, when I was younger, we were actually really, really poor. We had this family tradition that started when I was a toddler, and that I thought was really fun and that I really, really enjoyed, that was called Dinner of the Poor, where basically for dinner we would have toasted bread, tea, and, like butter on the toast, like buttery toast. And I thought that was so fun because we were having breakfast food for dinner. And it was only until many, many years later, when I was older, that I realized that the reason why we would eat toasted bread for dinner with tea was because my parents didn't actually have any money to buy proper food. Um, I would eat at school, like they would feed me at school. Here in Portugal, the state kind of pays for your education if your parents can't, and they also pay for your lunch and food if your parents can't. So I would eat at school. I would be probably fat, so don't worry, I wasn't actually starving or anything. But sometimes at dinner, they wouldn't be able to buy proper food, so we would eat toasts, toasted bread, and I thought it was fun. But as I got older, I came to realize and learn a couple things, like how sometimes my parents would skip lunch and breakfast and basically every other meal in the day so they could save up a couple pennies so they could have a family dinner with me so I could have a proper meal. Uh, or how they wouldn't buy things for themselves that they actually needed because they wanted to save up money in case I need it. And yeah, we didn't have money for that many things. My mom was unemployed, my dad was unemployed, and they just had to save up. And it's not that they weren't looking for work, because they were, it's just that there was no work available for them. And one of the things that they would save up was on clothes. So until I was about 14 years old, we actually never bought any new clothes for me. All of my clothes were hand me downs from my cousins. And I didn't actually have many female older cousins, so the majority of my clothes were actually from my male cousins. And this was like that until I was around 14 years old, where they would give me their clothes. But then, they got old enough that they weren't growing anymore, so they didn't actually need to buy more clothes, so they stopped giving us clothes, and we had to start buying our own. But we also didn't actually spend that many money on clothes for me because, again, I was already 14 years old, so I wasn't actually also growing anymore, and I was still using up a lot of the clothes that I had received like the prior years. So if I was to show you my wardrobe now, because I haven't grown up since then, a lot of my clothes are actually from the time I was in 9th grade. Um, some of those clothes are over a decade old. They are very, very old. They are the majority of them are female clothes. Um, the ones that like weren't so noticeable that were male clothes, I kept a couple of them, but I also got rid of them over the years. Um, but yeah, we never actually bought that many clothes because the habit was not ingrained in me. Like, I know for the majority of people, buying new clothes is something that is kind of a habit for them. For instance, my sister-in-law, my brother's girlfriend, she actually buys clothes every 3 months. Like sometimes not as often, but she shops a lot for clothes. At least I think that's a lot. Like she only has one body. I really think it's unnecessary and a waste of money for her to be buying more clothes every 3 months. But she does that, and apparently she has been doing that ever since she was a child. It's just something that she used to do and that she's used to doing. And I don't know how often people buy clothes or how often people renew their wardrobes, but personally for me, maybe because I grew up with not that many money and maybe because all of my clothes were hand-me-downs, I don't like buying clothes. I hate buying clothes. I I hate throwing clothes away. I save up my clothes for as long as they're good. Even if they're out of fashion, I'll still keep them. I don't like wasting clothes. I don't like wasting money. Period. Uh But new clothes is like, I don't know, it's this really magical concept for me just because I never actually had access to that many new clothes. Um, so I really want to knit myself a lot of garments, and I kind of want to renew my entire wardrobe. I want to give all of my clothes to charity, and I actually want to knit myself a whole wardrobe. I know that's crazy. I know that's insane. And I know that I'm probably going to waste way more money than I would if I were to buy the clothes already made. But my reasoning is, well, one, I like knitting and I want to knit a lot of things. And I kind of need things to knit, you know? Like, one of my fears is that I end up knitting myself a wardrobe and then I'll get out of ideas of what to knit and I'll just, I'll just be without a hobby. But I want to knit myself clothes. I want to put my hobby to use. And I also want to have clothes that are made of natural materials. Um, I know this is like a big discussion on the knitting and crochet and just fibers overall community about acrylic yarns. I don't like acrylic yarns. I don't like knitting with them. I don't like buying them. Like, acrylic is made of plastic, and I think there's already enough plastic in the world as it is. And I like to knit with natural fibers. And I also think that it's better to have a fully natural wardrobe than a synthetic one. So that's also one of the biggest reasons why I want to knit myself a wardrobe, because that way I'll know what my clothes are made of and I'll be able to make sure that all of the materials I'm using are natural so that my environmental impact is lower, you know? So those are the main reasons why I want to knit myself a full wardrobe. Also because it's fun. Another thing I actually want to knit are camisoles, like summer tops and stuff. I always thought that it was kind of weird to knit things for summer, but I've seen a couple camisoles here and there and I just fell in love, so I actually really want to knit them. But I'm also scared because the majority of summer camisoles are made with smaller needles, like three and a half sized needles. And I don't know if I can deal with that, man. Like, this t-shirt I'm knitting with size 4 needles, and I already think that this is a way too small needle and that this is going to take forever. I don't think I could handle a 3.5 project or even a 3 sized needle project. Like, I understand socks. I understand socks because they're smaller, they have less fabric, and even if you're using a really, really small needle, it's going to knit up relatively fast and easier than a whole ass sweater. Um, but a camisole, I don't think I have the guts to cast on a 3.5 camisole project. Like, I want to. I really like the finished product, and I really like the idea of having something that was made for me and something that was made by me and with natural materials. But do I have the guts to take on a project with such small needles? Does anyone else feel the same? Like, do you all feel scared when you see that a project requires such a small size needle, because I feel like a lot of people do. I feel like a lot of people hate small size needle projects, but I also feel like a lot of people actually really, really love them. Like the other day, I was watching this one girl, and she was talking about how she hated knitting with small size needles. And I was like, oh my god, me too. But then in her next video, she was making a camisole on 3 size needles. And she was like, oh, I made this pattern. I know I said I didn't like small needles, but I had to do it for this camisole just because it wouldn't have the look I was looking for if I didn't use 3-sized needles. And do you really hate working with smaller size needles? Because I feel if I was making up a project, even if it wasn't going to end up exactly as I had envisioned, I feel like the idea of having a 3-sized camisole, like camisole made with 3-size needles, I don't think I would even cast it on. So yeah, that's something that's a fear I have to overcome. I feel like when the time comes, I'll probably need another project, one with bigger needles and a chunkier yarn, just so I can get my mind off of that one 3-size needles project. Because one of the things that keeps you going in knitting and crocheting is seeing progress. And smaller needles, they don't allow to see your progress that well, you know? Like for instance, this one t-shirt, like from this to like around here, I did all this yesterday during the entire day I was out. And I don't know about you, but this is such a small progress to the amount of time I spent on this t-shirt. Like, at the end of the day, I'm not entirely sure if it's worth it, my time, you know? But again, that might be just me making up excuses not to work with smaller size needles. Anyway, I think I'm going to end up the video here just because I have medication to take, and this break is already took almost 50 minutes of the almost an hour, so I'll probably have some snacks and I'll get back to work, see if I have anything urgent that I have to do. But I think you like to know that I'm actually feeling a lot better now. I was feeling quite anxious about the job application that was denied. Now that I'm talking about it, I'm getting anxious again, but not as anxious as I was before. So thank you so much for sitting and chatting with me, because it actually helped me. Like, I feel my soul is a little bit warmer right now. So yeah, I hope this was also enjoyable for you and that you managed to work on your project or on your projects. And yeah, thank you a lot for listening. This was really good for me. This felt really good. And in the meantime, it started to rain. I think you can hear the sounds. Do you like this ASMR? She says as she speaks super loud. I don't know. Am I speaking loud? Can you guys hear me? I don't know. Anyway, this was probably a concern that I should have had at the beginning of the video, not at the end. So I'll look into that later. I've been actually thinking about buying a microphone for my YouTube videos, but I also feel kind of silly. Like, I make these videos for fun. I don't know. It just feels silly to spend money to make them. I don't know. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.